All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this week's YouTube Live. So it's November 25th for me, 24th in America. So, something's loading here. 1 second. Okay. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. For those of you here, if you're able to hit like or leave a comment or something like that to try to drive this up to get more people aware of this so that the algorithm sends this out to more people so they're aware of the live, that would be great. We've had some chats that came in before I started. So here is the first one from IKMLAND 4120 is sort of a two-part questions here. So first of all, thank you very much for the super chat. Part one, sister is 61, 1 year carnivore. Beef, lamb, bacon, eggs, coffee, sparkling water. One kidney since her 20s, no kidney infections in 20 plus years, spent 8 days in the hospital 2 weeks after breast cancer surgery. Part two, over the 8 days, CRP peaked at 219. Now it's 14 when she left the hospital this past Saturday. Used to do 2-day fasts monthly. Told to expect 6+ weeks of fatigue. Is this normal? Any carnivore diet tweaks for recovery? No, not necessarily. I mean, definitely, you'll listen to doctors, they understand what happens when you get surgery and these sorts of things, that it's going to take time to recover. The full healing time of any sort of surgery, you think about this, is about 3 months. That's how long these tissues take to heal. It'll be mostly intact by 6 weeks, but the body is still healing at that point too. So it can take a lot out of you. So just having a carnivore diet, being in ketosis, the body's going to work better. The immune system is going to work better. Studies back from 1974 are showing that if you have 100 grams of sugar, then that actually shuts down your neutrophils, which are part of your natural immune system that, yes, fight bacteria, preventing bacterial wound infections after surgery, but also help in tissue healing and repair. So these are very important things to not muck around with. So being on a ketogenic carnivore diet, zero carb carnivore diet, can help that. Also, increased protein as substrate. This has been shown to improve outcomes after surgery, better surgical outcomes, and better wound healing, and as a result, you get lower infections and things like that. If the tissue is healing better, you have a lower chance of getting an infection. So protein is really important. The body is healing, it's repairing, it's recovering, and so it needs more building blocks. It needs more nutrition, vitamins, minerals, proteins, and fats to do that. And so just eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good. I mean, I would definitely focus on very high nutrient dense things, maybe throw in a bit of liver a couple of days a week just for the nutrient side of things. Coffee, my feelings on coffee, it can cause inflammation, which could increase pain after surgery. And it has anti-nutrient effects, so it will reduce the amount of proteins, minerals, vitamins, and fats that you absorb. And so you want all those. So if she's going to have coffee, definitely separate that out significantly from food. Minimum 2 hours separation, and better to have the coffee 2 hours after, or just even further away from any food or vitamins, minerals, even medication. I see people's medications, when we track things like thyroid numbers, if they're on thyroid medication, they have coffee in the morning. Within 2 hours of having their thyroid medication, significant reduction in the uptake. So that can be significant as well. So that's pretty much it. I think it's great that she was already on a carnivore diet and a ketogenic metabolism, a fat-burning metabolism at the time, because she was just going to do a lot better with the surgery anyway. And God knows what they fed her at the hospital, but hopefully it was something palatable. And now she's back home. She can just eat real food again. And other than that, no, I can't think of anything else that she would need to do or tweak it. I would just be as pure as possible, because that's just going to give you the best outcomes, and that's just going to be best for her body. You give yourself optimal nutrition, that's going to be optimal when you're recovering, as well as just going through your daily life. And so when you go through something like surgery, then it's really good idea to have that have optimal nutrition as well. Okay, all right. And for those just part 3. There we go. Oh, might even be part 4. Okay, we'll see him. I see him now. Okay, so part 3. Left this out. Sorry. More context. Went to the hospital 2 weeks after surgery. Heavy fatigue. Didn't feel right. Conclusion was kidney infection causing issue. Didn't present like a normal kidney infection. And also ER positive BC. Surgery was successful with clear margins. Good. Pathology also confirmed all 3 lymph nodes removed were clear. Hey, that's really good. Sorry, that's a long question. No, yeah. So same thing. I don't think that changes anything. I'm very sorry that she had to get surgery in the first place. I'm sorry she had a strange presentation of a kidney infection as well. It's sort of interesting when you go carnivore, your immune system works better, inflammation is different, and so you just don't feel sick in the same way. I typically don't feel sick like I normally did. I just feel really tired and run down. And so it could be that, she's prone to these infections, but even though she hasn't had one in a while, but she can experience those infections slightly differently. So keep paying attention to the different symptoms. If something's off or something's wrong, maybe have a low threshold for checking the urine and things like that, or checking for a temperature or something. Just look for signs of infection or something like that, because being sick just feels different. And so it's important to sort of be mindful of that. So yeah, well, and good luck to her. Hopefully she does. I'm sure she'll improve. It's good news with the clear margins and clear lymph nodes. Hopefully that means she doesn't have to go through chemo or radiation, but just see what her doctors say. And obviously, being on ketogenic diet going forward can help help with whatever treatment plan she goes on, whether that's just surgery or if it does include some chemo and radiation. Being in ketosis, it just helps limit the amount of glucose available to those cancer cells. And that's something we've seen in study after study after study. It's called the Warburg effect. And so because all known cancers that we know of have damaged mitochondria, and mitochondria are necessary for burning ketones. Just like red blood cells don't have ketones, they don't have mitochondria, so they can't burn ketones. They need glucose. Same with cancer cells, because they don't have mitochondria either. So they need to burn more glucose, and so you limit that, and you're limiting the amount of energy that they have available. So hopefully all the nasty bits are gone, but if there's still a few rolling around, hopefully they can get choked out from not having enough glucose. That's the idea. So good luck to your sister. All right. Sorry, I'm just playing with the camera here. It's being a bit not getting it where I want it. Anyway. Okay. So the next question is from Ernesto Glucksmann. Thank you so much for the super chat. I'm sorry for butchering your name, which I'm sure I did. Just wanted to thank you for changing my life. I'm tapering off my immunosuppressant with doctor support after putting my ulcerative colitis into total remission. Have never felt better, all thanks to your video. Well, that's amazing. I'm really glad to hear that. Oh, thank you very much. You didn't have to do a super chat to say that, but I really appreciate it. That's very kind of you. And I'm really glad that your ulcerative colitis is in remission. That's amazing. It's absolutely fantastic that we can do this now. I mean, it's still sort of like you have to pinch yourself. Like, is this real? Did we actually figure out autoimmune disease? Because they cause such a radical burden of disease. I mean, it's so debilitating, as you know, but people that don't know, it is very debilitating, and it can really take over your life, and sometimes end your life, and cause a lot of pain and suffering that's needless, as it turns out. So I'm really glad that you and others are coming to this, and it's absolutely fantastic that we just do these very simple dietary changes, and then just autoimmunity goes away. Hopefully that gets into the mainstream way of thinking very soon, and it's coming. It will happen. I mean, because it's just there. There's too much signal there. There's too much noise to ignore. I spoke with Dr. Barron, Professor Barron, who's a professor of bioenergetics over at Stanford, and she's been there for 18 years, and she's been doing carnivore for 5-6 years now. Massively improved her. I think she had UC as well, and Hashimoto's. So she's massively improved her health and came off all the meds. So she's teaching medical students at Stanford, right? So having someone like that, very well placed, saying like, actually, guys, we're sort of rediscovering some things here, and that this is a really exciting time that we may be able to have better treatments for this. And so, because she runs a lab, might even be able to do more studies on these sorts of things, not necessarily UC, but something, right? MS, something else, and getting more of those papers out there and being able to influence the next generation of doctors, I think, is massive. So, really glad that you took the risk, and it is a risk, but you changed something to see if you could get better results, and you did. And so, congratulations to you. I'm really glad that you are doing so well. Okay, there's a super chat from Find Peace in Solitude. Thank you so much for the super chat. Hey, Dr. Chaffee, I'm just getting into bodybuilding. Is there a specific protein and fat beef I should eat to get really lean? See your Instagram pictures and got really inspired. Well, thank you. Thanks for all you do. Well, there isn't necessarily a ratio. Look, you need enough fat and you need enough protein, right? So you need to meet your demands. If you're lifting weights, you're going to have a higher protein demand if you want to put on muscle. So you're going to need more protein than little old lady, who's just walking the dog every day, right? So who's just trying to maintain that level of musculature. So you're going to need a bit more protein than other people. But again, it just goes by taste. Your body's going to tell you how much it needs. You just eat fatty meat till it stops tasting good. And you eat enough fat so that you get soft stools, but not loose stools. And remember that coffee, tea, magnesium, artificial sweeteners, medications like metformin will all cause a slight laxative effect, or a great laxative effect in the case of coffee, and will sort of cover that up. And so you might actually be under eating fat, but you don't know it because you're also having coffee. So your stools are still soft and moving. So just be mindful of that. So if you're only eating meat and only drinking water, then you can look at how your stools go. And that's how you know how much fat you're getting. So get that much fat, get as much fat so you can have soft stools, but not loose stools. And you just eat to your body's demand. If you're trying to put on muscle, you probably want to eat at least twice a day. You might even think about eating 3 times a day if that's what your body needs. And as far as exactly how much protein, you'll listen to your body. I mean, you could sort of track this, but you just eat to satiety, and your body will really tell you. I mean, you have other things like Vince Garanda would have 30 and recommend people have like 30 raw fertilized eggs a day. They thought fertilized was better. And I was talking to Dr. Ken Berry, who said there's actually studies showing that when you fertilize an egg, it actually changes the proteins in egg whites, and seems that people that have problems with egg whites seem to not have problems with fertilized egg whites, which is interesting. And Garanda was very, very clear about using fertilized eggs for this too. So maybe there's something that he noticed there too. In any case, they found that could help putting on muscle and keeping lean and things like that. As long as you're just doing ketogenic carnivore and you're working out hard, you're going to be pretty lean. One of the ways that the old school bodybuilders stayed very lean without all the growth hormone and taking thyroid hormone and things like that, or clenbuterol and all these different sorts of hacks that they use hormonally to get the effect that they want, was they eat pretty much a carnivore diet. Like Serge Nubret would only eat meat, like 6 pounds of horse meat a day for 3 months leading up to competition. And also the way they trained was very high intense, had a lot of sets and very short rest periods in between. And what that does, that high intensity exercise with the very short rest periods where you're sort of, you're doing one set on the back of the other set, you're not fully recovered yet, you're sort of working up a sweat, just lifting the weights, that can further trigger growth hormone, human growth hormone, which actually does increase lipolysis, which is fat burning. right? And can increase testosterone as well. So these are both good things for a bodybuilder. You're going to get more lean, and you're going to increase your musculature and testosterone and things like that. Other things are very important. Get proper sleep. You need to prioritize sleep. That's where you get your biggest dose of growth hormone. So you have to prioritize sleep. Don't eat carbs. Carbs raise insulin. Insulin blocks growth hormone. It also raises that insulin, increases fat deposits. So you're blocking fat burning and you're causing fat gaining. So that's not good. If that should be enough, just that high intense exercise. Sprinting is really good too, even for bodybuilders, because it gets your legs, massive and cut. So, and that'll shred you out too if you're doing sprinting 3 days a week too. You can also be a unit too. You don't want to be like a muscle bound ox at the gym that doesn't have any, it has no athleticism either. You want to be big, rip danger out there where you're sprinting and you're trouble on legs, so that's what you want to do. And that also will get you lean, and you'll get jacked and lean, and you'll have no problem. If you were coming up to competition, you really wanted to sort of influence things a bit more, you could increase your fat ratio. And if you get your fat above 90% total calories and you get your protein below 9% calories, that seems to trigger something called FGF21, which causes further fat burning, another 400 kilocalories of lipolysis a day. And so that might be able to get you down even leaner. But when I'm playing rugby, or when I was playing rugby and going to the gym regularly, I was down without any sort of changes to my diet, just eating fatty meat until it stopped tasting good, eating twice a day because that's what my body was telling me to do. I was about 5-6% body fat without trying, and veins on my abs and things like that, where it's like, it was just, it was very easy to get that lean and stay that lean. And so I don't think you'll have much of a problem depending on your training and if you stay very strict, but on the diet. But at the same time, there are ways to manipulate that as well if you want to for that specific end. I don't recommend that to everybody because I think it's just important to just eat healthily and have those habits. You don't need to, it's not a race. We don't need to get to your lean body mass straight away. It will come in time. But if you hit a stall, you hit a fat loss stall, for instance, that's a way that people get through the stall, is actually increasing the fat, not reducing the fat. Reducing the fat can actually cause problems. You get malnourished. You don't get the fat-soluble vitamins that you need. You get protein poisoning. And because you will be converting a lot of that protein into ammonia, and that makes you sick. So it doesn't matter that you have fat there to burn. If you're eating more protein than fat, you will get a buildup of ammonia. You can get very sick. You can lose your hair. You can have terrible energy. And then you can eventually get protein poisoning. So that's not what you want. So increase the fat to get through a stall, don't decrease the fat. Again, your body has a limited capacity to absorb fat. I'm sorry, you cannot overeat fat unless you're taking ox bile or something silly like that, because your body just simply can't absorb it. If you're drinking down MCT oil, sure, because your body, more of that can go into your liver. The rest of it is going to go out because it needs bile to absorb. You run out of bile, over 90% of the fat you're eating is going out, except some of those MCTs. So, there's no such thing as overeating fat because you just won't absorb it. You'll get torrential diarrhea. And so you'll know about it. You'll know if you're eating more fat than you can absorb. And again, you're not absorbing it. So it's not affecting you physiologically. It's just inconvenient. Hope that helps. All right. Eunice Bauknow. I'm going to go with that. Thank you so much for the super chat. How does going carnivore affect a healthy 18-year-old like me differently than an older adult with health issues? You just optimize your health, and it's for you and the older adult. And the older adult may have health issues that are caused by decades of eating things that aren't good for them. But you're eating things that aren't good for you. It's more important for you because you're still developing. At 18, your growth plates are likely still open, not necessarily, but they often are. And so you can grow more. Remember, we talked about growth hormone. Insulin blocks the production and action of growth hormone. Growth hormone makes you grow, right? Makes your bone structure grow, makes you grow taller, makes your shoulders broader, makes your long bones grow, broader for men anyway. Vitamin D, that's really important too. That broadens the shoulders in men and narrows the waist, get that classic V-shaped appearance. Vitamin D is a hormone. And in women, it sort of narrows the waist and broadens the hips. You get that classic hourglass figure, which is probably why there's so many bikini models coming out of Brazil, because they eat a lot of meat and they go in the sun, and that's where you get vitamin D from. And so for you as developing, it's even more important for you to eat a healthy diet and eat optimally and keep your carbs down so that your insulin stays down, so that your growth hormone and testosterone are up. And that makes you grow, and that makes you healthier. So you can optimize your health and development. So that's the difference. The older person, they've already developed, they're not growing any taller. You can. And so you can grow taller, bigger, your brain can grow. All we can do as adults is maximize what we've already developed. You can develop more. You can go past what we made, which is great for you. I'm a little jealous, but I'm going to be glad for my kids, because you always want your kids to have the best shot, and you want them to be better off than you. And they will be, because of the things I've figured out, and hopefully they can pass that down to their kids as well. And so they're going to be taller than I am. They're going to be hopefully smarter than I am. I'm sure they will, and probably not hard to do. And they are going to be more emotionally balanced during puberty and development. And they're just going to have a better lead up into life. And that's going to give them a good foot forward. The rest is up to them, but starting them off on a good foot anyway. So it helps you with your development, and it maximizes your development, and it will maximize your health long term, so you never develop those chronic issues that those older patients have. But for everybody at every stage in life, it optimizes your health. And if that's important to you, having optimal health, optimal development, then that's what you want to do. That's important to me, and so that's why I do it. Alex Mills, thank you so much for the super chat. Alex says, my testosterone is 143. I started taking testosterone injected into my thigh once a week. My thigh hurts for days. What do you think about the cream? Yeah, something you need to talk to your doctor about, see if that's appropriate for you. But just in general terms, the cream can be better because you're not stabbing yourself. It's a small risk of infection, but it is a risk. Thigh is not great. You'd want your doctor to teach you how to put in your glute. There's problems with that because if you are not careful, you can hit your sciatic nerve. That's a big problem, but your doctor can teach you how to do that properly, sort of an upper outer quadrant, so you can avoid that sciatic nerve. And that can be a little better. But if your doctor said, no, do it in your thigh because I'm worried about you, then look, fair enough. But that's very common to do in the glute if they can teach you how to do that properly. But testosterone cream is probably better anyway, because that better mimics your natural physiology. So in the mornings, we normally make our testosterone boost, right? So we have that testosterone boost in the morning, and then it sort of comes up and then it goes down throughout the day. So this is why you check your testosterone levels first thing in the morning, as opposed to later in the afternoon, because your testosterone will always be down later in the afternoon unless you're supplementing with something. And so you test it first thing in the morning between 8 and 9 a.m., or else you test it 10, 11 a.m., it'll actually be down from where it was there. So the cream just gives you that spike, and then it goes away throughout the day. And that's important because you get this spike and that triggers other things to go off, right? But it's supposed to get used up. You're not supposed to have just testosterone up here all the time. And that's what the injections do. Sure, it gets you up here, and then over days and weeks it comes down, but then you're sort of always up all the time, as opposed to mimicking that physiological boost of just in the mornings. And if you were to take hormones, which again, you need to talk to your doctor about to see if that's appropriate for you, then I would feel it's more, that they would be more healthy and avoid more side effects if you did it in more physiological pattern. Getting up to physiological levels, but just doing that physiological pattern, that diurnal pattern where you're just getting it in the mornings. That's more physiological than just having jacked up testosterone all the time. So that's what I thought. Now the cream, it's a bit more touchy because there are application issues. There's certain parts of the body that have better or worse absorption. And so there are ways to improve that. And so having the proper technique is really important. And then on top of that, now you have the cream on your skin. And so if you have small kids around, you can't touch them. You have to wash your hands thoroughly. Don't let them touch those areas. Don't let, your significant others or anything like that, can't have physical contact with them in those parts for a good hour at minimum. But I've seen people that have had no contact in the morning, come home at night, and then they go to bed together, and the wife's testosterone is jumping up. So there's still some residue on the skin. So I would be cautious of that, and maybe don't come into physical contact. Maybe have it in for a while. Don't put a shirt on for a while because it can rub off on the shirt. And then at night, come home and take a shower and scrub all that area off, so you're not rubbing it off on your family members. Things like that. So there's pros and cons to each one, but you could also look at different places of getting that done with your doctor, and they can teach you how to do other sort of things as well. Maybe it's not that big a deal if you find another location that's not sore. But cream's good, but just got to be careful. So saw Eddie Gogi's video about Sarah Z's attack on Olivia. Happy others are calling out carnivore disruptors. Any thought on it? How do we stand up to them? Well, you just don't let people push you around. The last thing you want to do is go and comment all over their videos, because that just gives them traction, and that gets more engagement on their videos, which makes their videos more popular, and it helps them in that way. So if you disagree with what someone says and you think that it's not a good thing, maybe if there's just this is an outright lie what was happening, maybe, okay, well, look, that's not right, this is not the case, and you can call them out. But the more you have to sort of do that carefully, because the more you do that, the more you promote the video in the first place, and so the more people see it. So it's not a nice thing to do. It's never an okay thing to body shame, and everybody comes from a different starting point, and you have no idea. I mean, Olivia had massive improvements in her health and had significant weight loss, and has been very, very healthy for years now. And and so that's great. So she's actually had fantastic results. And saying that someone's opinion doesn't matter because they don't have a certain fitness level, like, of course that's not true. People's opinions matter. It doesn't that's an ad hominem. You're saying, well, because you look like this, your opinion doesn't count. Well, no, the opinion stands or falls on its own merits. It has nothing to do with how fit someone is. And so, I replied and put a story up and just put a picture of me, with my shirt off, and just like, okay, so because because I'm fit, does my opinion matter? Because, I agree with Olivia that all the research and data comes up, and my clinical experience with patients is showing up that ketogenic carnivore is the way to go. And, and if that's the only marker of whether your opinion matters, like I'm in better shape than most people. So I guess my opinion must matter more than theirs. Is that right? Of course not. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, I like Sarah. I've met Sarah several times. I was not expecting that from her. I didn't that surprised me to see that. So I don't know, what's going on there. But, I still like Sarah. I still think she's, a very nice person. So hopefully this is just a blip, and, just having a bad day and doesn't, continue like that. But, of course it doesn't matter what someone's fitness level is. Everyone gets an opinion. This isn't communist Russia or China, or North Korea. Like, people are allowed to have their opinions. And just because that opinion disagrees with yours doesn't make them wrong and doesn't make their opinion invalid. I mean, you can disagree with them and have a discussion, but shutting down the discussion by saying your opinion doesn't matter because of how you look, that's obviously not right. That's prejudice, and it's really not acceptable to do that. And it's also not logical. It doesn't make sense. That's a logical fallacy. It's ad hominem, right? So those are sort of my thoughts. But yeah, and then Zane jumped on. Oh yeah, bullseye. Zane, I'm in better shape than you've ever been. With a fraction of the effort, and you take steroids like testosterone, you take peptides that boost all sorts of other things, and yet I'm still in better shape than you. And I work 100 hours a week. So, your opinion by that argument is less meritorious than mine. And my opinion is you're wrong. So by your own arguments, you need to accept that, or you need to not be, such a jackass and accept that people are allowed to have their opinions, regardless of what they look like, and yeah. So, and the fact of the matter is that you just completely get biochemistry wrong. I mean, it's nothing easier than to tell when someone hasn't, when someone's taken biochemistry, to tell when other people have not taken biochemistry. And Zane has not taken biochemistry, and he's not even writing his own things. He's getting scripts from other people that push this whole repeat nonsense. Who's been proven wrong by experimental data countless times, and so. He's just regurgitating what he's being told to regurgitate. He has no clue or understanding about these things. That's very clear. And when you explain these things to him, at first in a nice way, and he just comes back, angry and aggressive and insecure. That's really what it comes down to, is insecurity. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He knows he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's being fed lines by other people, and he's on edge, right? And it's very clear. And so he's lashing out. But whether or not he knew everything, I mean, like I've taken, biochemistry 460, this is a senior level class. I've taken, postgraduate immunology. I have an MD. I have a postgraduate medical degree, and so, I'm telling him, like, oh, this is what the textbook says. What you're saying is actually inconsistent with that. And it's not the full picture. You're not understanding the full picture. And then he just repeats the same old things and tries to distract and say other things and change the subject and all these sorts of things. And it's just like, there's clearly a high degree of insecurity there because of this lack of education. But and that manifests as just bullying, just playground bullying. And no, so I think that's absolutely uncalled for, to do body shaming and saying that someone's opinion doesn't matter because they're not fit. That's absurd. That's absurd. I guess Stephen Hawking's opinions on astrophysics that didn't matter because God doesn't even work out. I mean, God, why would you even listen to him? So I mean that's ludicrous, of course. So that was my views. I still like Sarah. I still think she's a nice person. I think this is a strange turn that she's taken. Hopefully she comes back around because she's quite a nice person. Than when I've met her in person. So hopefully that goes away. Zane, not a nice person. That guy's a douche, and I have no interest in that dude or anything he ever does. Okay, so and that's the thing. So people have just joined you. Please do hit the like button. Please do leave a comment. Please do try to share this because that drives the algorithm and gets more eyes on this, because YouTube doesn't put this stuff out there unless you guys engage and you guys interact, and then it'll start suggesting it to more and more people. Unfortunately, even the people that are all subscribed and hit the bell and all that sort of stuff, they should get every notification. They don't get all the notifications, unfortunately. So sometimes you have to do check, and when there's more engagement, then it will suggest this to more of the people who have already signed up to get all the announcements but don't get all the announcements. So please do help with that engagement and try to get some more people in. Okay, so the Ann's Tube, thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Chaffee. Every time back on Carnivore after 2 days, I get what feels like a UTI. I need to pee. Pee stings with little blood, no kidney pain or fever. That's very strange. I don't know what that is. It could be something like oxalate dumping, where you just your body now just starts dumping this stuff out, which can definitely irritate your kidneys and your urine. If sort of cloudy, sort of chalky, cloudy sort of appearance, that might be something it is, but that's just conjecture. The important thing is what happens after the 2 days. Does that sort of settle down? Does that go away? Does it actually turn out you have a UTI? Do you have to go on antibiotics? Those sorts of things. If it just settles down and goes away, then don't worry about it. It's gone now. So it could have just been a bit of oxalate dumping, but stay on it. if it goes away after a couple of days and you stay on it and then it stays away, then great. Don't go back. And hopefully whatever it is, it works its way out. You can have very strange reactions and things like that we don't know exactly what's causing them, because there's a lot of things that could cause them. And there's a lot of things that are going on that we have no idea they're actually at play. We just have to sort of take guesses. Some things we can figure out, some things we know about, and other things we just sort of have to say like, well, let's see how it goes. And then it just sort of works its way out and goes away. And that's the most important thing. If it persists and is persistently causing a problem, okay, well, we need to figure out what's going on. We need to do some investigations, do a urinalysis, look for infections or something like that. Look for oxalates, whatever. If it goes away on its own though, then that's interesting, but at least it's gone now. And so if that's the case, that it does go away after a few days, then just keep going. And don't keep stopping and restarting that process. That would be the best advice I have for you. Good luck with that. Okay, Jay Blaze, thank you so much for the super chat. What do you think about McDonald's patties on the go? Yeah, I guess any port in a storm. I would rather not eat at all than to eat something that's bad for me. Now, there are probably preservatives in the McDonald's meat patties, although I haven't seen anything where it says that it does. Burger King, at least from people that I've spoken to who have tried talking to Burger King corporate, they seem to be they're of the stance that they don't put anything in there. It's just 100% beef. They don't have preservatives or any of this other stuff in there as well. So that's Burger King, Hungry Jack's in in Australia, Burger King everywhere else, because there was actually already a Burger King apparently already patented in Australia, and they came in. It's like one store. They're like, hey, we'd like to buy some. Absolutely not. That guy could have made a mint selling that. But yeah, so they changed it to Hungry Jack's. And so I don't know exactly what goes into the McDonald's Burger King patties. People say it's like, well, I had this patty there for 15 years and it doesn't rot. I'm like, well, but dry meat also does that. And so if in a dry environment, you can try that out. I mean, I got steaks in the fridge that have been there for weeks sometimes, and they just dry out. They just turn into beef jerky. Fine. That's going to last. You're going to check that again in 30 years. My God, it looks exactly the same. Yeah, because it's dry. It's not going to rot out. Doesn't mean there's preservatives. There could be preservatives, but they could also dry out just because they're dry. So if you need to, and you want to get some patties and you're just starving, like, when I'm traveling, I'm going, a couple days in the airports and things like that, sometimes I'll get McDonald's patties or Burger King patties. Or if I'm going through like Southeast Asia where I don't really, know how the animals have been treated. I don't like that. And so I sometimes will get the meat patties as well, or they have, vegetables and seasonings all mixed in. It's like, I just want meat. And so sometimes I do that as well. And but if you're on the go and sort of in a pinch, then it can be a good option. Obviously, cooking at home is the better option. A low carb, low drama. Thank you so much for the very generous super chat. That's very kind of you. Okay. Also, maybe we cap the super chats there as well, because I have a few pile on, and I only have about an hour, so we'll sort of cap the chats there. Okay, so low carb, no drama. Low carb, low drama says, hi, Dr. Chaffee. There's strong evidence of serious GLP-1 side effects, including major muscle loss. I'm trying to convince an elderly family member to stop GLP-1s and move to a keto carnivore diet. It has to be healthier, right? Thanks for all you do. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely healthier. So GLP-1s can be very, very harmful. They absolutely can. Some people can find a lot of success with them. It really helps with weight loss where they have not been able to do that in the past. Great. In certain circumstances, for certain people, sometimes that can be used effectively. In the doses that we're giving these things for weight loss, it is much more likely to cause very serious side effects and harm. It also is the case that when they put people on these GLP-1s, hold on a second. What did I just do? Oh, okay. Sorry. I hit the wrong button. So it's also the case that when doctors put people on these GLP-1s, they just say, oh yeah, just take this magic drug and everything else will take care of itself. It's a horrible idea because now these people are going back. They're paralyzing their stomach. They feel sick and rotten all the time. They can't eat more than a certain amount. So they just have little bits of candy or a little cookie or a little snack because that's all they can do. And everything else is feel upset and they can't eat all that much. So they lose weight because they're basically starving to death and they're not giving themselves actual nutrition. So they're actually worsening their eating habits. So they're losing weight because they're forced to lose weight because they're forced to not eat. But now they're actually picking up worse eating habits, and eventually that goes away, and so they can start eating more, or they're having so many side effects they have to stop, and so they come off of it, and then all of a sudden they have way worse eating habits. They've just been eating little bits of junk. Now they're eating a lot of junk, and then they regain all that weight. But what they regain is fat, and what they've lost was lean body mass as well as fat. So their own studies showed that 40% of the weight loss is weight, sure, but it's lean body mass. You can't afford to do that, especially in the elderly. Young people can't afford to do that either, but definitely the elderly can't do that because sarcopenia and loss of lean body mass is directly correlated with shorter lifespan and dying, having falls, being more frail. That is a very, very high risk factor for death, right? So don't do that. Even if you were to do a GLP-1 in a smaller dose just to help with cravings and things like that, like a diabetic dose or even a micro dose from there, you can still get some of those same benefits to help change your diet and lifestyle. And you go to a carnivore diet where you're actually giving yourself real food, then you can actually still get the nutrition while still getting some of those effects that can help you lose weight or force you to stop eating as much. But, typically after, I know people that have done this or use much lower doses of GLP-1s while they're transitioning or while they're transitioning someone else into like a ketogenic approach or a carnivore approach, because it helps with those cravings. But those cravings, the carb cravings, sugar cravings, they don't really only last for a couple of weeks once you transition over to like a carnivore diet or a ketogenic diet. As long as you're eating enough meat and fat, then you shouldn't really get those cravings after sort of week 2 or 3. So having those GLP-1s for a couple of weeks while you're transitioning onto a healthier diet, and then that diet seeing you through, that can be effective. I still don't do it because I am able to do that with other people. I have 3 patients that have gotten sort of lower doses from other doctors to try to help them stay on a carnivore diet or stay with the carnivore diet. So I do see that utility in low levels, not at the high weight loss levels. I still don't like those at those levels because they have such massive risk profile. I don't think that that's something that ever should have been approved at those doses. And I don't understand why it was so successful. I mean, I remember when these studies came out, they even talked about it on the news. It wasn't like they were hiding this stuff. Was that, yes, you lost weight, but 40% of that weight was lean body mass. And when you regain the weight, it's only fat. So you regain more fat than you lost. So how is that? So I looked at that and I'm like, oh, well, that was a dud. That wasn't good. And all of a sudden next week, Ozempic sold out worldwide. Like, how? How are doctors prescribing this? If you know the study, if you know that this is going to leave them worse off at the end of it, it doesn't, that's not good, So it's, I think it's not a great idea to use these things. It's the quintessential deal with the devil. You just says, hey, I want to lose weight. And they're like, okay, yeah, well, you can lose weight, but there's going to be these changes and physiology. We might have some side effects. Yeah, whatever. I just want to lose weight. Okay, and just so you know, like in 2 years, you might regrow back all this fat and it's not going to be muscle. Yeah, whatever. I don't care about the fine print. I just want to lose weight. And then all of a sudden you end up worse off than you started. And that's always the deal with the devil, is that it looks like you're getting what you want, but it ends up actually being worse for you at the other side, right? And that's what these GLP-1s do for a lot of people. Some people, great, changed their life. They were able to lose weight and things like that. And they escaped some of the very serious side effects. Lovely. I'm happy for you. But once you go back and you start, eating again, because you can't stay on these things forever, what's going to happen then? And, I just don't think that it's a healthy option. So, but if you're using that in lower doses, a combination of healthy eating, and it helps you get onto a healthy eating plan, maybe. But, all my patients, except for those 3 were able to do this on their own. Well, no, yeah, 2 or 3. And they feel that that just helped them with the craving side of things. But what's actually driving this was going carnivore. And they said that this helped them stay carnivore. But again, you don't need those massive weight loss doses. You can do the diabetic doses or the lower microdosing below the diabetic levels, and you still get that benefit of not having those cravings. And there's other things that can quell cravings as well. It doesn't have to be the GLP-1s. So hopefully your relative, at the very least, comes onto a healthier way of eating. So it gets healthier eating habits and can come off of this and get all the results that they want without all those harmful drugs. Good luck with that. Okay. Mal Goodman, thank you so much for the super chat. Lost 12 kilos in 2 months on carnivore. First of all, great job. Injured your foot 2 weeks ago, was healing, but 3 days later was bloody sore. Had a blood test for doctor, diagnosed with gout. I read fast weight loss on keto can lead to gout. Been eating less cow and more egg yolks and yoga, or maybe yolks. Slowly improving. What are your thoughts? Well, gout can be caused from multiple things. So we now call it pseudo gout, being these other causes, and gout being uric acid crystals forming in the joints. It can be very painful. But the only way that you can tell what kind of crystals are in your joint is actually by sticking a needle in your toe or whatever joint's being affected and taking out aspirate, which no one ever does because they're horribly painful and you're going to get punched and sued as a doctor. So no one does it. No one ever does it. And it wouldn't be right to. It would freaking hurt. And so, but that's the way you get a diagnosis. But everyone just goes, uric acid. Not necessarily. When you're in ketosis, you just fast. Ketones compete for elimination in your urine with uric acid. And so automatically your uric acid is going to go up because now you're not using your ketones properly. And so you're peeing them out. And so that drives up uric acid levels. Okay. So, the vast majority of people don't get gout when they go ketogenic or carnivore or fast. And yet 100% of them will increase their uric acid more than it was at their baseline, usually above the reference range, just by fasting or going into a ketosis, right? Because of that effect. And then after 5-6 months, then it comes back down to normal levels because that shows keto adaptation. So you're talking about 6 months of elevated uric acid, almost no one gets gout. Okay. So it's not about high uric acid levels. It's about how your body processes uric acid or oxalates or all the other things that can cause that, because oxalates can cause gout. And there are 4 or 5 other things that are known to cause gout. Now we call them pseudo gout. But pseudo gout and gout look exactly the same clinically. You cannot tell which is which unless you stick a needle in your foot. So I doubt your doctor's going to want to do that. So what people normally do when they go on carnivore, if they have sort of a flare-up, it will eventually go away. And when it does, it usually doesn't come back. Sometimes they might have a flare-up, maybe 2 at the outside, and then it goes away and it doesn't come back. So I would persevere and do the things that you need to do. Saying it's slowly improving, that's really good. So hopefully that goes away sooner rather than later and then doesn't come back after that. And that's usually what people's experience has been. I can't say exactly what's going to happen to you. So you can't always predict everything for people, but that is what people's experience has usually been. Maybe someone who's dealt with that, maybe pop in a comment and let us know your experience with that as well. Okay, Unfathomable WZ, thank you so much for the super chat. Are carb eaters faster runners than carnivore? Also, is it okay to supplement vitamin D? If you're low on vitamin D, sure, but the vitamin D that we get from supplements is chemically different than what we get from the sun and from food, so it has a slightly different solubility in the blood. However, it does have similar hormonal effects for at least for some of the things that vitamin D does, but vitamin D is over 1,000 things in the body. And so is it going to have all those same effects? Probably not, because it is slightly different chemical structure. It does have slightly different solubility. But when someone has rickets, which is a vitamin D deficiency, you give them a vitamin D supplement, it does cure the rickets. So it has at least some of those hormonal functions. So if you are low, again, any port in a storm. So at least get those levels up to at least a certain degree, but really get out in the sun. Don't shower for 8 hours after you're in the sun, because you make vitamin D on the surface of your skin largely, and it can take up to 48 hours to soak in your skin. So you go out in the sun, you don't shower for 8 hours, because if you shower, you're going to wash all that off. If you needed to rinse off, just don't use soap, because the soap will strip the oils and take the vitamin D with it. Fatty food, fatty meats, right? Grass-fed butter, grass-fed meat, animal fat, tallow, those sorts of things are going to have a higher level of vitamin D. But really, sun is going to be your boy. Are carb eaters faster runners than carnivore? No. Not when people have been long-term carnivore. So studies shown that even as much as little as 6 weeks from Prof. Noakes shows no reduction in athletic performance in randomized controlled crossover trials, right? So they gave them 6 weeks to adapt. They tested their levels, no drop in performance. Gave them a 2-week washout period. They ate whatever they wanted, and then switched the group. So keto group became carb group and vice versa. Gave them 6 weeks to adapt. Again, no drop in performance. Okay. Then you go up to 3 months with the McSweeney trial, and they actually found an improvement in 100-mile run, 6-second sprint, and a critical power test. And so the carb group actually underperformed the keto group at that point. So long-term in ketosis, you're going to be, you're not going to be at a disadvantage at the very least. And we do have studies showing that people have a performance advantage at 3 months. And you're going to continue going again, six months or so to get fully keto adapted. And your mitochondria is still improving for another 2 years after that as well. So the longer people go, the better you can get. There's also something called the central governor of fatigue. And this is something that we've known about in sports medicine. I learned about it last year, but it is the thing that the medical community has understood for the last 10, 15 years. And that's when you're pushing your body, and you're just like, oh, I can't do it anymore. It's like they do like finger flick tests. And eventually you I can't move my finger. And you get an electric signal, bam, it's going again. Okay, so the muscles can still fire. So there's something going on centrally, meaning from your central nervous system saying, cut it out. This has gone on too long, right? You're using too much energy. This is a waste, or something, whatever it is, some sort of physiological process that dampens down your ability to contract those muscles. And one thing that they found was that they had plenty of energy available. They weren't dying, but something said, no, we're not doing this anymore. This you can't just keep running. This is dumb. And so it dampens down your body's ability to do that and sort of chokes off the energy supply potentially. And so one thing that they found was that, okay, you can have a bit of carbs. Oh, I've got all this energy. It's like, well, but 20 grams of carbs, that's not going to get you too far. But yet people are going for hours after that. Okay, so why is that? Well, they tried this thing where they just put something sweet in their mouth. So they mix some honey, some sort of sugar water, whatever, put it in their mouth, switched it around, just got that sweet taste in their mouth, and spit it out. All of a sudden, bam, they were re-energized because their brain thought there was energy coming in, or it's just a bloody brilliant placebo. But what it did is it sort of turned off that central governor of fatigue. And so all of a sudden the governor's off, bam, you're out there again. And my friend, Dr. Paul Mason, a sports medicine doctor, he works with professional athletes all the time, putting them on ketogenic carnivore diets, massive improvement in their performance. I've worked with a number of professional athletes, not as many as Dr. Mason, because that's all he does, but quite a few. And I've been a professional athlete. I've absolutely seen my performance improve massively. And I'm seeing these people's exercise potential improve massively as well. Literally yesterday, in communication with a professional soccer player in Europe, and they're trying carnivore and they're feeling a lot better, but they were in the middle of the season and they're sort of transitioning. They're like, oh, well, maybe not fully keto adapted and sort of having bits of dips in my energy. Mentioned the central governor of fatigue. There's actually been a few weeks. They probably should be feeling at least back to where they were, and said, hey, why don't you try that? Why don't you try to put some honey in water, dissolve it, swish it around, spit it out. and see how you go. And if you're sort of flagging halfway through practice, so do that beginning of practice, see how you go, do that halfway through. If you're flagging or whatever, do that halfway through practice, try it again. And they said that they tried it once and bam, felt great. So, they're off the carbs. Before that, they felt they needed to have like a banana or a bit of fruit or some sweet potato before a game or something like that. And now, they just did that and bam, felt great. So I have a whole video on ketogenic carnivore athletes, and I talk about that as well. But there are a lot of athletes now that are doing this and having massive improvements in their health and longevity, because you're not getting all this glycation, stress, and damage to your joints, and your joints are everything in an athlete. So your joints start to go and you can't play. I mean, living proof of that. I damaged my cartilage of my kneecaps from kickboxing since I was a kid. No other joint damage on my entire body from a lifetime of very, very high contact sports. And it's just the kneecaps, just from the kickboxing. So now I get bits of cartilage flaking off and getting stuck in the gears, and it swells up, and I feel great. I can sprint, I can run, I feel amazing, but then my stupid knee swells up and that shuts me down for a while. So, but I'd be out there right now if that weren't the case. And once I figure that out, you will see me out there. Okay. All right. So there's just a nice comment here from Lorville Villard, who says, your guidance helped immensely with autoimmune. Told to eat veggie and no meat, and geez, I kept getting worse. Once I started following you, my health totally changed. Can't thank you enough. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. And I don't know where the hell they get this from. There's, if you eat meat, that makes your autoimmune issues worse. At least some of the people have said, look, we don't have any studies that show that diet changes anything. I mean, at least that's something. You haven't seen the studies that show that cutting out carbs and fiber actually help with things like Crohn's disease, or have an elemental diet with just macros and micros improve Crohn's disease better than prednisone. But you haven't seen that. Fine, but at least you're not making things up. Like whoever told you that, oh yeah, you can't eat meat, that makes autoimmune. There is not a single study on this earth that shows that eating meat makes autoimmunity worse. None. Again, I haven't seen every study in the world, but I'm putting that out there. I guarantee you there will never be a study showing a cause and effect relationship between meat and autoimmunity. Because you know why? Because I put people exclusively on a meat only diet, eating nothing else except meat, and it puts those things into remission continuously. I mean, this is just time after time after time. It's not like sometimes, it's not a few times, it's every single time someone with autoimmune conditions does this and is very strict, just red meat and water, every single one of them improves. Most of them go into remission. Some of them have to go even further and go grass-fed, finished, pasture-raised beef and lamb. But everyone improves. Everyone. So, the idea that meat just causes this, there's not a chance in hell that there's any study showing that. Even if there was like an epidemiology, whatever, it's nonsense. There's no experimental data set that is going to show that. I guarantee you that. So I don't know where the hell they're getting that. I don't even know of epidemiological studies, unless it's coming from the nurses study and the Adventists. But those guys are jokes anyway. But it's wild that, you just don't want to eat meat. And that's their own personal biases going, yeah, meat causes bad thing. You have a bad thing, so no meat. That's like caveman thinking, man. So I'm thankful that you found this and are doing so well. And so good luck with that. Okay, Go For It Fitness. Thank you so much for the super chat. Hey, Dr. Chaffee, have you ever worked with someone who has thalassemia minor? Do you know of any dietary requirements or restrictions for a person with thalassemia minor? Yeah, I actually have a number of patients with thalassemia of various degrees of thalassemia. No, they're fine. I mean, the thing is that you can improve your blood numbers, but it doesn't necessarily just completely reverse the issue. Sometimes people can still have off numbers, but they still have bits of anemia. But you're optimizing all these other things. You're optimizing all the vitamins, minerals, that you need to make proper red blood cells and things like that. So, your B12, your iron, these sorts of things. So it can optimize everybody. With thalassemia, it's very important to have that optimized, because you start getting suboptimal, that becomes a bigger problem very quickly. I haven't seen it just reverse thalassemia and completely reverse the sort of the normal changes that these people have had, but they definitely doesn't get worse. There's never no, I've never seen someone need to change how they're doing carnivore. They just do normal carnivore with thalassemia, and they do just fine, and they do very well. And that's important, because if you're prone to having these issues because of thalassemia, then obviously you want to optimize all the things that are in your control and power to optimize. So good luck with that. Okay, Energy, thank you very much for the super chat. Hey, doctor, I tried most diets, and recent skin issues and bloating pushed me to carnivore. Recently fainted at night. Could be blood pressure. How do you manage potassium? So, well, if your potassium's low, then obviously you take some potassium, but that's usually going to cause things like arrhythmias, going to cause like a racing, fluttering heartbeat, could cause atrial fibrillation, and that's very serious. If you're getting sort of a racing heartbeat or irregular heartbeat, you need to go talk to your doctor and get your bloods tested and get an ECG, as it looks like you're in Europe, and EKG in America, same thing. And I don't know why it's an EKG in America, electrocardiogram, and cardio is spelled with a C, not a K, so but EKG sounds punchier, I guess. I don't know. But in any case, it could be, if you fainted at night, that could be, and it can also come from dehydration, which could be caused by losing too much sodium in your urine, as opposed to potassium. You're losing too much sodium because insulin has to do with pulling back sodium. So when you go into a ketogenic or a carnivore approach, insulin levels go down. Now it's not pulling as hard to keep the sodium in, so now it goes out too much, and your body will readjust to that, and you usually readjust pretty quickly. But as you're adapting, you could lose more sodium than you actually want to. And water follows sodium. So if sodium draws in water into the microtubules, and you pee those out, so you pee more. So the thing to do there, add more salt, drink more water, because at the end of the day, this is a dehydration issue, and you lower your blood pressure, or you lower your water volume in your blood, you're going to lower your blood pressure, especially when you stand up, you can get very dizzy. And so your blood pressure drops a bit too much, and you can get postural hypotension, orthostatic postural hypotension. And so that is often from losing sodium and then losing too much water with that sodium when you're starting onto any sort of ketogenic approach or even fasting. So yeah, add more salt, drink more water. That sort of continues, or you're getting sort of a regular heartbeat or racing heartbeat, and you're worried about potassium, you need to go see your doctor and make sure that that's not actually the case. If you need potassium, you can add potassium salts or supplements as well. But if you're worried about potassium, I would definitely check that out, because low potassium can be dangerous. Okay. Rosen, thank you very much for the super chat. I lost some weight. Very good job. Congratulations. I feel great. I do have loose skin that is concerning me. I'd like to hear what you'd recommend to help reduce loose skin. That's a tough one. Some people do retain some of that loose skin. When you're losing weight naturally, you're eating the right things, you're getting all the proteins and collagens and vitamins and things like that you need. Oftentimes your skin will retain some of that elasticity and sort of shrink down with you as you're going. If you do like massive, weight loss in an unhealthy sort of way, or just liposuction, your body doesn't have a chance to adjust. It's just like, hold on, what the hell happened? Now it's just sagging. It's not getting the inputs it needs to sort of shrink back down. Or if you've gained weight and stretched out the skin and then lost it, and then gained it and then lost it, and then gained it and then lost it, eventually your body sort of just runs out of elasticity. Or because of how you're gaining and losing that weight, because bears don't have a whole bunch of saggy, flappy skin every year when they hibernate, but they're losing weight in a physiologically normal way for their species. Whereas we may be malnourished and eating a whole bunch of garbage, and then starving ourselves or taking amphetamines and other sorts of things to ramp up fat loss, right? So that could be part of it as well. So if you've had issues with growing and losing, maybe there's something to do with that. It's hard to say. Unfortunately, the only thing you can do is basically just wait and see, and just try to eat right, try to exercise, try to lift weights, try to sprint, do all these normal things that improve autophagy, improve tissue repair and healing, and just wait and see what happens. Hopefully that does lose some of that loose skin. Sometimes if people have a lot of loose skin, sometimes they do things like a tuck, like a tummy tuck sort of thing, where they get rid of some of that loose skin. They end up having some scars, sometimes big scars, but that can be, some people prefer those over the loose skin. But, it's just one of those things. It's just a wait and see. So do all the right things, eat the right things, exercise in the right ways, and, hope for the best. And hopefully that does come down and you won't need anything else. But, sometimes people do wear out the elasticity of their skin and may not come back down, unfortunately. But, fingers crossed that yours will, given time. All right. Lawrence Van Ruyen. I'm sure I butchered your name. I'm sorry about that, but thank you very much for the super chat all the same. If I eat about 20 meals per week and 18 of them are strictly carnivore, the occasional 2 non-carnivore meals probably won't have any meaningful negative impact on my health. Is that right? It depends on what you're eating. I mean, that's sort of the same as saying if I don't do cocaine 5 days a week, but I do cocaine 2 days a week, that probably won't have that much of an impact. Okay, well, it will, and especially depending on how much cocaine you take, or how much alcohol you take, or how much cigarettes you smoke, all those sorts of things. The things that you bring in your body that are non-carnivore, the problem with that is that they do cause harm. And so, yes, it's much better to have 18 out of 20 meals being just proper nutrition. Depending on what those other 2 meals are, could be better or worse. So, I would still just stick to whole foods. I would still try to avoid carbohydrates and sugars and seed oils, obviously, and just have real whole foods. If you're going to have veggies, I would cook the hell out of them, or ferment them, or, poach them in milk and things like that. If you're talking about spinach, to get those oxalates out of there, do things with traditional dishes that you cook them in the traditional ways, where people have been preparing plants for millennia, specifically for the express purpose of reducing the toxic load of these plants and increasing bioavailability of the nutrients, making them more nutritious. So not just eating, raw plants or things like that. So that's what I would do. If you're doing that, I mean, my God, you're going to be so much better than you ever were before. It's going to be night and day difference. And so great, but you might feel a lot better during the week, and then you eat this stuff. Pay attention to how you feel the day or two after you eat these things, especially if you're working out. You're going to be more sore. You're going to have more problems. You're going to have less energy and be like more brain fog. Like, oh God, I don't really know if I like this. And then you start feeling better throughout the week, and then you start it over again, or you start reintroduce these carbohydrates or sugar, then you restart these carb cravings. So if you have like a cheat meal or 2 a week, you're just going to be sort of withdrawing the rest of the week. You might actually not feel great. And then as soon as you're almost getting away from this stuff, now you're sort of redoing that. So yes, much better than you were doing before, whatever it was before you were doing. But there are some drawbacks as well. So what I would recommend, well, if that's what you want to do and you feel great, then go for it. It's still a massive improvement. But what I would suggest trying is maybe go like 30 days, and just try just 30 days, see how you go, just meat, eggs and water, and see how you feel. Because you might be surprised at how much better you feel. And then then add in one of those other meals. And pay very close attention to how you feel as you're eating it, directly after you're eating it, later on in the day, or especially in the next couple of days, the next day and the day after. Really pay attention to soreness, to, you have muscle soreness. If you didn't have muscle soreness before, now you do. And you're like, oh, work out Work out hard leading up to that, and then eat something. You tell me that you're not more sore when you eat that stuff, because most things will make you more sore. Coffee will make you more sore. So if you're not eating any of these things, you won't get sore. And that's crazy for people. That's when I get the most pushback. You get sore. That's bullshit. No, I don't. And you won't either if you just stop all plants for a few weeks. I did 45 sets of legs the other week. No problems. I did 36 sets of legs, last week. I'm going to do 35, 45 sets today. There's no problem out there. I did 6 sets of calves, and I had some stuff that had some spices in it. My God, I couldn't walk for 3 days. It caused so much inflammation and swelling. So cut all that stuff out, and you see for yourself, you won't get sore after working out, right? If you cut all of it out, including coffee, and that's the key, because that causes a lot of inflammation. And then, you might feel like, well, my muscles have definitely done something, but they won't be all stiff and, oh God. And then you have one of those meals, and especially, depending on what's in it, you probably get very stiff and sore. So, I would just pay very close attention. So yes, doing that 18 out of 20 meals a week, much better than almost everybody else on earth. So that's already a massive improvement. That's really good. But you'd be surprised at how much impact those 2 meals have on you. It's absolutely crazy how much it is. And you get all that stuff out of your system. You give yourself a few weeks to get all that stuff out of your system and see how your body actually works. It's amazing. It's night and day difference. And I've had patients that felt that carnivore was like, oh, I need some variety. I have to have something else. I'm like, okay, well, let's do like a keto diet, just a bit of these, cooked veggies and this, that, and the other, but only like 2 fist-sized servings a day. And they're like, okay, I can do that. And they come back like a month later. It's like, all right, how you doing? They're like, I think I got to go back to carnivore. It's like, yeah, what is that? It's like, I just felt so much better. I didn't even realize how good I felt until I stopped doing it. I only added in some veggies. It's crazy how much difference that made. So that's good. So I would suggest trying that as well, because you might be surprised. Okay. Good luck with that. Whatever you decide to do, you're already doing a great job. All right. Thank you all very much. And yes, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I'm going to get a turkey at some point, because Costco has turkeys, and I'm going to brine that in some salt water. I hope, if I can get a big enough bucket. And so I'll be celebrating Thanksgiving in Australia. Unfortunately, won't be able to make it home this year. But hopefully everybody else is able to get to see their family and loved ones, and have a great Thanksgiving this year if you celebrate. So thank you all very much. That's the last of the questions. And there's a new member, Juliet Edens. Thank you so much for joining. It's great to have you on board. Steve Large, great to see you, Steve, and send a super sticker. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. There we go. And then another new member, Fad Balstani. Thank you very much for joining. It's good to see you. Great. There's something here. It's like a comment. It looks like from Frank Calabrese. Before I turned carnivore, my blood showed very low vitamin D. I stopped supplement of vitamin D, and since I've been carnivore, my vitamin D is spot on. Thanks to listening to Dr. Chaffee since 2023. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad you're doing so well. Yeah, my vitamin D is in that optimal level. It's actually slightly above the reference range. That's with no supplementation. That's just with eating fatty meat and getting in the sun when and as I can, which is not nearly as often as I like. So great. Well, thank you all so much. It's been great to see you all. And we'll see you next week. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone who does Thanksgiving. Take care.